Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Here's your host, Jason A. Meiske.
Hello, Sample Chapter listeners. Welcome to episode 300. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't believe it. I cannot believe this show has been going on for 300 episodes. And it's all because of you. It's all because of you, the listeners, the incredible authors who have agreed to be a guest on the show. So many things to be thankful for. But it starts with you, the listeners, who keep coming back, who keep downloading the show, who have caused this show to grow exponentially from day one to here we are today, a little over 8 years later. And I'm just overwhelmed. And the response to everyone hearing that episode 300 was coming up is just, it has truly humbled me. And you're going to find out here as we go, just some of the other responses I got on how wonderful this experience has been. Hey, thank you again. I'll run down a little bit of the history of the show, which was beginning with, I launched the show January 15th of 2018. And as many of you might know, I began the show because I had a little bit of the podcast bug, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And I toyed with different ideas. I was thinking about, I'll get together with some friends and we're going to talk about whatever comes to mind, because that kind of show doesn't work. But I thought, who's going to listen to that? I mean, what am I going to say that anybody's going to be interested in? And at the same time, I was working on my first book, 9 Mile Bridge, and I hit that. I finished it, I completed it, and had, notoriously not done some really good edits on it. But the book was getting ready to come out. And I thought, what if I introduced the world to not just myself through this podcast, but what if I brought on other authors? Because I knew for a fact there were other authors like myself seeking a way to get the word out about their books. And I thought, well, why not provide a platform for not just for myself, but also for other authors? And my original focus was I'm just going to do indie authors. We're the ones who are struggling. We're the ones who are the starving artists. It was a little naive of me at the time. I wholly admit that. And soon after I put out my first part episode, the introduction to the show of what I had planned, within a couple episodes, I was talking to authors who had contracts, who went with traditional, ways, and found out that, all of us authors are in that same book. I mean, unless your name is Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, or, you have something that is, your name equates to sales. Well, I mean, that's like, what, 0.1% of a percent who can do that? Whereas the rest of the 99.9999% of us authors are struggling to get people aware. Hey, I wrote a book. I like it. I want you to like it. I want you to buy it. Can you, just go check it out and leave me a review when you're done? So that was the idea behind the show. And, I already knew of other author interview shows. I've listened to several shows. I mean, there were several of them that actually helped inspire this show for me to do an author show. And I wanted to just go ahead and think of something different. I thought, why not have the author do a sample chapter? Let's do that. Let's have a sample chapter read by the author, and maybe that'll be the show. It'll be called the Sample Chapter Podcast. And from there, it took root, and I asked around to several of my local authors who I knew, and reached out to some authors that I'd been starting to follow as well online, and asked them, say, hey, if I began a show, would you be interested in coming on? And I got an overwhelming response. So I thought, all right, well then let's just kick it off. Maybe I'll get one episode, maybe I'll get 5, maybe I'll get, big deal here. Maybe I'll get 10 or 15 episodes and, before this thing dies off. And so, I put out that episode 1, technically like 0.5 or 1.1 or whatever you want to call it. But it was just the sample of here's what to expect. But as for episode 1, that was reserved for a local author who was a good friend of mine here in my writing group, Stan Smith. And I'll let Stan explain it in his own words. Here you go.
Stan C. Smith here, author of science fiction adventure novels and short stories. Jason and I have been in the same local writers group for years. I happened to know him when he started the Sample Chapter podcast, and, lucky me, he interviewed me on his very first episode. That was January 2018, 8 years ago. Man, a lot has happened to both of us since then. I now have 24 sci-fi novels out, as well as 5 collections of sci-fi short stories. And Jason has published a number of novels, and this is his 300th episode of the Sample Chapter podcast. Jason is obviously incredibly dedicated to this, and I'm honored to have been his first guest. If anyone is interested in sci-fi adventure stories that usually involve wilderness survival and bizarre alien settings, check out my Diffusion series, Bridger series, Across Horizons series, and Peregrine Outpost series. Thanks for creating 300 episodes, Jason.
Oh my gosh, Stan, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I'm really overwhelmed with having such a gracious guy in my life, and he's really a mentor to me. And I mean, it's amazing to look back at, Stan was a pretty new author at that time, but I invite you to click the link in the show notes for Stan, or as you're listening, go ahead and search Stan C. Smith on Amazon. And I mean, he went from being a newbie author to he is now like one of the best-selling authors. He's had multiple bestsellers, and he is a premier science fiction author on Amazon. And I am just so thrilled to just have this tiny little piece of like, hey, I was there when. But, so then I went on from Stan. I was interviewing more authors locally that I knew, and it just kind of grew from there. And, I was reaching out to other authors like, oh, well, let me see if I can contact this person, or let me see if I can contact that person. And right away, I got the shock of my life when I reached out to Michael Anderle. I asked him, he said, hey, would you like to come on the show? And I'll be darned if he didn't say yes. And so episode 7 already, I had a guy that was routinely in the top 100 of all authors. I mean, not just a certain genre, all authors. Michael Anderle agreed to come on the show. And I was nervous because I'd been following this guy for a few years. He had helped develop the movement that's now the author show or in Vegas every year, 10 books to 50K. He helped start that. And he was wonderful, though, to talk to. Soon after that, I had another guy on podcasting that I'd been following a little bit, Kevin Tumlinson, who is again now, I mean, he's really, he's everywhere. I mean, Kevin Tumlinson, he's just amazing. And oh my gosh, he was so amazing too when he came on to do his reading. And I'm saying amazing a lot, but like he was my first guest who was doing voices. And that was a lot of fun. So Kevin was on with episode 16. In between there, I had what somebody that I've been following in podcasting. He was another one of my influences, a certain guy named Armand Rosamilia. And his name sounds familiar for multiple reasons. Not only is he an extremely prolific author, but he is also the all-time leader of guests on the show. He has been a guest on the show 6 times. And, there's no reason for me to tell you about it. I'll let Armand tell it to you in his own words. Here you
go. 300 episodes of your podcast. That is nuts. The fact that I am the mayor of the Sample Chapter podcast, that's even crazier. I'm your most frequent guest, 6 appearances over 8 years, There's got to be an award or something. He should send me some money or whatever. Seriously, congratulations. Here's to 300 more. Let's be honest, you got to have me on at least another 6 times over the next 8 years. So good luck. And, man, just keep it going. You know what I'm saying? Just keep it going. I always had fun on your podcast. I always had fun hanging out with you. I miss you, brother.
Thank you so much, Armand. And I keep telling you, man, I promise that check is in the mail. It's got to be somewhere between here and Florida. It should be showing up any time now. Along with the little plastic trophy that I have for you as well. That episode with Armand, that kicked off a long time repeat theme where he would come on every once in a while. Sometimes he'd wait a year, sometimes it'd be a little longer, and sometimes he'd come on with another guest. He'd been on the show with Chuck Buda. He came on the show with Jay Wilburn, and sadly we lost Jay a couple of years ago. And Jay actually came on the show on his own to feature one of his books, and then I was a guest on Jay's show. And sad that we lost Jay a few years back. But Armand was also, like I said, he was a podcaster, and I was thrilled to be a guest on his show as well, back before he stopped podcasting. And that was amazing. And that was all part of leading into me being more comfortable. Like I started feeling more and more comfortable, finding my footing, so to speak, and talking to authors all over the world. I had my first interview in Australia, had New Zealand, had England, all over America. I started getting them. And the show just kept growing and kept growing. And I was really thrilled by that. And in those first 2 years, I was putting on a pretty good pace. I was doing a weekly podcast. And not just weekly like how I do it right now, where the episodes are split up. This was back in the days when in the one episode, you got the interview, any of my own, writing stuff, and the reading. So episodes were going, and they kept growing and growing. And I was routinely hitting an hour or an hour plus with that. But it was good because people were enjoying it, and it was going really well. But yeah, an episode a week with about a 2-week window there. So right before Christmas each year, I'd finish the year. I'd take a short break, and then right after New Year's be picking it up again and right back to it. So, 50 episodes a year. And I held on to that for a couple of years. During that time, I started a YouTube channel. I reached out on different social media things like, it was just on Facebook at first, then got on Twitter, X now, Instagram, and then started the YouTube channel, which was really something I was trying to decide. Do I want to take this audio show and put it on YouTube? Like, what is that going to be? Like, who's going to listen to this on YouTube? But it turns out, I'm actually one of those kinds of people who does enjoy podcasts on YouTube. And I don't need the video. I just have it playing in the background. I like listening to music or ambiance and other stuff like that on YouTube and have that playing. And lo and behold, over the years, the YouTube channel has continued to grow and grow and grow. And that's become a very popular podcast platform for me. At the same time, was reaching out and meeting more podcast friends, such as this guy right here.
Hello, my name is George Sirois, and I am the host and producer of the podcast Excelsior Journeys, The Road to Creativity. And back in 2018, when I was starting my own journey as a solo podcaster, Jason reached out to me to be a guest on his show, the Sample Chapter Podcast. It was a real thrill to be able to come on to talk about the different projects that I have going and continue to have going with several novels, with my 23rd audiobook just being completed, with the audio drama that's currently out there, Excelsior, The Audio Journey. It was a great thrill to be on Jason's show, and I look forward to having him on my own show again. And I want to congratulate my friend for 300 episodes, and I look forward to 300 more from him. So for Excelsior Journeys, The Road to Creativity, this is George Sirois saying to all of you, ever upward.
Thank you so much, George. That was an amazing clip. And it was so great being on your show, and I was so thrilled to have you on my show. And we got to do it again sometime, man. I'm looking forward to you completing that series, so we can get you back on here, or something even completely different. And we'll get you on here again, man. I look forward to talking to you. I look forward to running into you sometime. I need to get to the other side of the state and visit with George in St. Louis with some events over there. But yeah, George, he's another one who, I mean, he was doing really well with his books. You know, he had an agent, he was doing good with a publishing platform. And then, of course, his show starting off. And I'd been following him on a different show right before he started his own. But it's so good to see how well he has done over the years and how much he has grown. I'm just so proud for him. So yeah, I spent a couple of years in Armand's podcast network, and then that network, more or less, it came to a close. It just kind of got to where it was too big. There was too much going on, and it couldn't survive the things that were happening. And as that the shows continued, but the podcast network itself just kind of went away. And around that same time, I ran into this guy through a social media clip, actually, or social media post. I was posting about a winter storm and we'd lost power and talking about that. And this guy in Springfield, part of the Pop Goes the Culture Network, Joey Mills, reached out and commented, hey, you guys be safe up there. And he was, Springfield, that's like 2 hours away from me. And we did a little bit of chatting back and forth. I started following his show, and we did some more chatting. And next thing I know, he's asking me, hey, well, why don't you bring your show over since you're not with your network anymore? Come on over to mine. And that was fantastic. And yeah, I got a little clip here from Joey.
Hey, this is Joey Mills with Pop Goes the Culture and VXV Events. Jason, congratulations, 300 episodes of Sample Chapter Podcast and all your continued success as an author. It's awesome, man. When we started doing this whole podcast thing, we were looking to make a podcast network. We wanted to find people who were doing the things they loved, talking about and creating entertainment and pop culture, which is why we reached out to you to join the network. And it's been awesome since, getting chances to meet you at different events, particularly in Kansas City when we go up and do Planet. So it's been a lot of fun. I wish you continued success and just keep this thing going, man. Awesome. Congrats.
Oh man, Joey. Yeah, it's always fun to run into you at the cons. And man, I missed getting to run down to Springfield for the Missouri Comic-Con going on here recently. And I was hoping to run into you there. But we're definitely going to get together again real soon. It's always a good time getting to chat with you. So yeah, those first 2 years leading up to episode 100, that was a blast. I got interviewed in the local newspaper featuring the show, celebrating that 100. And over the next year or so, continued with that same pace, episode a week, and struggled a little bit at times, but I was always able to put it together, because I started running into things with family health crises. And I remember sometimes, in order to keep up and meet my quota that I wanted to do, I was actually doing 2 episodes in a week just to meet my own personal quota and hit that goal by the end of the year of another 50 episodes. And I had a few times like that where it was like, okay, here you go. On Tuesday, you're getting this episode. Check back on Thursday, you're going to get another episode. And then I'm promoting both of them along the way. And oh my gosh, that was crazy. But, I was making it work right up until, we had COVID hit. About that time, my schedule changed. We had schedule changings, had other health issues. I started having surgeries at that time. I finally started having surgeries on my knees because, what can I say? I'm an aging man. I was under 50 when I started this show, and now I'm closing in on 55. But, during that time between 21 and 23, it was things just got strange. I was so busy away from authoring. I was still writing a lot. I was still putting out books, but doing the show was still getting to be a little bit of a struggle. And right up to just before episode 200, I started having to take more breaks. I'd be away for a week or two, and then have a string of episodes. I didn't have that 50 episodes a week anymore. And it became a little bit of a struggle. And, plus during that time I discovered cruising, the fun time that is. And have since 20, I've been on 3 cruises. And that's always, you're gone for at least a week, plus downtime before and after, trying to get ready or recovering from after. So, I mean, that's a couple of weeks each time you go on a cruise. But, closing in on 2023, I still had so many amazing guests during that time. I mean, I had some celebrity guests that I could not believe that I would ever get a chance to talk to. And I'll tell you more about some of those here in a moment. But I mean, just, remarkable opportunities, some people that just blew me away, and so many wonderful first-time authors, even some kids. There were some teenagers that would reach out to me and let me know. And I was going to say earlier, I mean, starting the show with people that I knew, basically writing friends. And then suddenly one day I got that first email. Hey, I've heard your show. I'm interested. Would you consider interviewing me? And this is somebody I don't know. And I mean, what a great feeling that was. And little did I know that that was suddenly going to blow up from, every once in a while, every couple of weeks, I got an email to, almost every week I'm getting an email to now it's like I'm getting a couple of emails, several emails a day. And it's really difficult to try to keep up with that. And I know I've been very horrible at some of the correspondence with that, but it's also a little overwhelming, the reach that the show has gained. And it's hard to put out that kind of content. So in May of 2023, with the help of podcast friend and author Ryan Morgan Miller, I decided to change the format from a weekly podcast where everything was all together in one episode. I decided to split it up. I wanted to experiment with that because me personally, I'm not a big fan of long form podcasts that go on for over an hour. I like to try to keep things under an hour, even shorter if I can. And so with Ryan, we experimented with that. I just did the interview in one episode, just like what I do today. And then the next episode was the reading. And you know what? I think it worked because ever since then, I've been doing this and I've noticed downloads have been growing and growing over the years. I mean, I went from, back in the early days, depending on the author, certain authors had a big audience, other ones not so much. But I went from getting, few dozen downloads, for an episode to, now, I mean, I'm getting thousands. Again, certain authors generate more downloads, and that's to be expected. But overall, even an unknown author who, maybe it's their first book, they're still getting thousands of people, up to 1,000 people, or even at least a few hundred people who they don't know are checking this out. And, you just can't get that kind of reach on your own when you are trying to tell your family and friends about your book. And, Facebook only does so much for you. And I was really thrilled to have been able to provide, this new format and to see that it was welcomed by the listeners. And I want to thank you again for following along and accepting the new format. And I'm really, really grateful for that because it not only does it give more content and helps me promote those authors more often, but it also gives me a little bit of a break where plus I don't feel so bad about not being able to do a weekly podcast like I used to do. Who knows what the future may hold, but for right now, the foreseeable future anyway, that this is the way the show will go forward. And I think it works really well. I've also had some other great friends I've developed over the years who have started their own shows, such as this guy here, Steve Clark.
Hey, this is Steve L. Clark, author of The Doors of Chamberlain, Down Home and Center, also the co-host of the Never Not Horror podcast, wishing Jason Meiske and the Sample Chapter podcast a happy 300 episodes. I have been fortunate to be a guest more than once, and it's always a great time getting to chat with Jason, always brings out the best of anyone he's talking to. I love to listen to the show. There's always good insight listening to other writers talk, and I enjoy Jason as a writer as well. Don't sleep on A Novel Idea. It's a great book. So congratulations on 300 episodes. Thank you, sir, for supporting my podcast as well as my writing journey, being the first guy to reach out and ask me to come on to a podcast. So congratulations. Appreciate everything you do, and here's to many more.
Oh man, Steve, you know what? I'm so thrilled and I'm so happy for you, man. Your books are amazing. Your show is amazing, and I'm thrilled to be able to be on your panelists to help rate some of the horror movies for your annual list of greatest of all time horror movies. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to each episode. You guys do a fantastic job. And everybody, of course, all of these guests who you were hearing from today, I'm going to have a link in the show notes for, so make sure you're checking out Steve's show. I mentioned earlier we lost, one of our previous guests, Jay Wilburn. That was very sad. He was very influential especially in the indie author community, and he's still very, very much missed. Sometime before that, we also lost another one of our previous guests, Jim Christina. Now, Jim, he came on the show many years ago. I think it was in 2019 was when he was a guest, and he actually had a podcast at that time as well, where it was like they were discussing Western books. And that was a unique show. It was really cool. And he was a great guest to talk to and to hear him do his reading. And yeah, that was sad to hear about his passing several years ago. And then, of course, Jay. And then most recently, one of my very earliest guests, Linda K. Thomas. And I mentioned this in social media posts here recently, but Linda K. Thomas is no longer with us. She passed away quietly at home. And she had some of the sweetest books you'll ever read. Their memoirs about her time as a missionary in Africa, and again, another one about her time in South America, and just one of the very nicest people you've ever met. And she was so much fun to talk to, very unassuming, and just a joy. But at the same time, I've been very honored to have so many guests that are still with us. And, I've had some amazing, like I said, teenage guests, first-time authors, indie authors, and best-selling authors. I couldn't believe it whenever I got contacted to interview Hank Philippi Ryan. I mean, she's an Emmy-winning best-selling author. And she came on and joined the show back in episode 135. I had been following this movie critic named Kevin Carr. All of a sudden, I just happened to write in one day and told him, like, hey, I liked your review on that movie. That was great. And he mentioned something about reading, that he wrote some books. And so I just reached out just randomly, and I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden we started talking, and then he agreed to come on the show, and he came on twice. Actually, way back in episode 40, and then he came back during the new format. So he was here for episode 265, or 4 and 5. I've had Gary Morgenstein has been a multiple guest. He was on the show multiple times. Gary is an award-winning playwright. He helped introduce the world to Sharknado. And he's also a media executive and author. He's been on the show 3 times with his futuristic dystopian baseball series. All 3 books have been on here, and that was episode 118, 167, and then on the new format, episode 250 and 51. Jeff Arch, the Oscar-nominated screenwriter and creator, he wrote Sleepless in Seattle. He joined us in episode 175. That was one that when I got that email from his people asking about, hey, Jeff's got a novel. His first novel is getting ready to come out. Would you be interested in talking to him? I was like, oh my God, yeah, heck yes, let's do it. And oh man, Jeff was amazing to talk to. Steve Alton, way back on episode 85. And Steve Alton, for me, going way back to the 90s, he was one of my heroes. I fell in love with his book, The Meg, which you may know that got turned into a movie here just a few years back with Jason Statham. And believe me, the movie is nothing like the original book. And he was, oh man, what an amazing time to get to talk to him and visit with him. And that was the first time I ever got to find out about a traditional author changing the ending of his story. Because when I read the book originally back in the 90s, like right after the book came out, it has this wild and crazy ending that I was like, oh man, that is really something. Well, then I lost the book like a year or two later. So flash forward a few years later, I'm talking to somebody who happened to know who that was. And we're talking about the story, and they're like, no, that's not what happened. No, he does this. And so I finally grabbed another copy and started reading through and found out that it got changed. And I got to ask Steve about that. And that was a lot of fun hearing, what goes on in the traditional author landscape and, how that happened. Of course, one of my very first authors that really blew me away, the lovely Diane Franklin. She's an iconic 80s actress and now author who has written a few books about her time in the movies back in the late 70s, early 80s. She did like the Amityville movies, Better Off Dead. She was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. She joined us for episode 38, talking about her times there, and then came back for episode 209, where she discussed her book about making the movie Better Off Dead with John Cusack. And man, what a wonderful guest. She is just a joy to talk to and always anxious. She was thrilled. She'd heard about my Bandit books. And so we get to talk about that. And she got so excited. And man, talk about making your head blow up when a celebrity is hearing you talk about your book and they're excited for it. I mean, that was so much fun. And, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one of my own personal favorites, Lou Diamond Phillips, from back on episode 146, and just such a random happenstance. I mean, the guy is very busy on social media. He's always on there. He's always making comments and posts, and he's a lot of fun. And I just happened to be somebody who saw him, like literally I'm watching social media and boop, oh, I'm following Lou Diamond Phillips, and boop, he had a post come up about a book that he had just written or was about to come out. And I just was like, oh, let me comment on that. Hey, that's great. You should be a guest on the show. And he types back, why not? And so next thing I know, we're doing some private messaging back and forth. And then he connects me with his people. And yeah, a couple weeks later, I am interviewing Lou Diamond Phillips and talk about as a child of the 80s who grew up with his movies. And I mean, it is just, I was overwhelmed. And I mean, I took a snapshot of the screen because, we're on a Zoom call, and I sent that to my wife. I was like, look, it's really happening. There he is. And that was so much fun. And then I finally got to meet him this past spring here in March. I got to finally run into him at Planet Comic Con, and he was just as amazing as he was in person. Came around, gave me a hug. We talked about his book and then the sequel, which if you haven't checked out those books, The Soldiers of Madeira, they're amazing, and they're available on Audible, so you can check those out. And we talked about what he's working on next, so I'm crossing my fingers that we'll get him back on here again sometime soon. So yeah, I mean, and that's just, it seems odd that the show that started off with such a aim, and actually still has a big aim on indie authors, new authors. But here I am, I've got, half a dozen, 8 or 8 to 10 incredible celebrities who have joined the show, and I'm overwhelmed. And, and what I'm not, I'm very aware that their presence on this show elevates the show. But what I really love about that is it doesn't just elevate the show, it elevates the visibility of all those other authors on here. Somebody who comes on the show to check out Lou Diamond Phillips, or, they want to check out Diane Franklin or Jeff Arch, you want to check this out. Well, maybe while you're listening to that, you want to see like, oh, hey, look at that cover. What is this? Oh, wow, that's Steve Clark's new book or Armand's new book. Wow, look at this guy. Armand, he's got hundreds of books. It's an open window for people to go in and check out the other episodes and discover a new favorite author who they'd never heard of before. And so, for these celebrities to have taken their time to come on the show and raise that awareness for these other authors, it's really special. And I really appreciate everybody's time. And speaking of other people's time, I have a recent author who also reached out and has a very special message as well. Here's Jon McBrine.
Congrats to the Sample Chapter podcast on their milestone 300th episode. And I am happy that I get to say I was one of the guests where I got to talk about my book, Unsecret Identity, Eric Hicker's book 1, YA sci-fi superhero prose. And man, what a fun podcast. What a fun time. And here's to 300 more.
Oh my gosh, Jon, that thank you so much. That was wonderful. And man, yeah, he was such a great guest. Jon, you were an amazing guest on the show, and I'm so thrilled to have had you here. And I look forward to checking out more of your books, man. You just keep up the great work. And yeah, we'll have to get you back on here again sometime soon. I made a post here a while back. I told everybody, hey, if you're interested in participating, I had a bunch of these audio clips that you've heard throughout the show, but I also had a lot of people reaching out, giving me congratulations and thanking me. I did hear from Diane Franklin. She emailed me, congratulating me. She couldn't do an audio clip, but just wanted to send off her congratulations anyway, because she's very busy these days. But yeah, I want to just shout out real quick a bunch of my guest authors, or a bunch of people who on social media have been sending along their thumbs up, their congratulations, and have been they're actually, a lot of them are regular contributors to the show as far as sharing and going on. Gary Morgenstein, yeah, I was just talking about him a while ago. They introduced us to Sharknado and then his baseball series. Gary sent his congratulations. Donna Koros Stramella was a previous guest. She also was sent her congratulations. Daniel Sheely, Nora Wolfenbarger, Dan Brigman, Goldie Edwards, Andy in Poet, which that's a name, that's a blast from the past. Andy was one of my first foreign overseas interviews that I did. And actually, I think I have an email from him here recently with a new book, wanting to come back on. So I'm going to have to reach out to Andy. But yeah, Andy also, Spencer Gray, I met him last year at an event in Kansas City. Paul Levins, thank you so much, buddy. Scott Humphrey, I do know you guy. I'm looking forward to your stories. I know you're working on them, and you need to get those stories put together, man, and get on this show. And then, of course, my family, my brother, my sister, my wife, my kids, so many of them, they always are sharing my stuff and liking and, and of course, my wife, I mean, she's that lovely voice that you hear at the beginning of every episode. You heard her at the start of this show. And, my wife was, from the very beginning, she was supporting me. She, gave me ideas. She helped me kind of put together, gave me advice on how to put together this episode. She's my rock. And I couldn't do so much of what I do without her help. So, Holly, I love you, babe. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you again to my family, the rest of my family, all my kids. Thank you to my amazing sponsors that I've had over the years, starting off with a self-storage facility supporting the show. And that was wild, doing a self-storage ad for the first, I think 2 years. And that was a lot of fun. Scrivener was a longtime supporter of the show and sponsor. And, and I've had a few other little spots here and there. And I don't have any sponsors at this time, but I am looking forward to reaching out here soon and growing the show and gaining some new sponsors. But thank you for all those wonderful sponsors of the past. And I again, all of you amazing authors, all of my previous guests, every one of you have been special. Every one of you are special, and those authors I have not spoken to yet, or those listeners listening to me right now, who are thinking about writing that book, do it. Get down there and get started, because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the years who they struggled with it. And I was one of those people who struggled with, I want to be a writer. I don't know where to start. Hey, just start writing. That's all it takes. Just start one day. Just say, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to start writing. And, if you just want to send me something and say, hey, I don't know if this book is any good. Would you mind reading it for me? Or could you give me some feedback? If you need somebody to give you feedback, I will do that. I will be there to help you out. And I can help you get some resources that you need. We can all do this together. A rising tide raises all ships. And, that is something that I discovered when the show began, and it is true today as it was then. So, like I said, this show would be nothing without all you listeners. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining me on this show for 300 episodes. And yeah, I look forward to another 300. Until next week, everybody, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out next time when I'm back with a new book, a new author, and a new sample chapter. Take care, everybody.